Hello, everyone. We're here. George is so excited that the Earth has stopped spinning. Leroy has been working non-stop 24 hours a day for the last 3 days, as well as George. How excited are you two?
I'm super excited.
I'm happy for George.
George has been a part of this community for a long time, but he's never had this stream, and he's always wanted to have it.
He was born for this stream.
I have to tell you, one of my unfulfilled ambitions in life was to own a comic book store, and it wasn't to make money. It's because I always wanted to recommend books to people that I thought they would like. Like that's all I wanted to do. Like I wanted people to come in my store, tell me what they liked, and me tell them, "Hey, I think you might like this." And I never ever thought I could do something like this. I'm so excited. I'm gonna be stuttering tonight. It's gonna be terrible. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
So you could say this show is 4,000 years in the making.
At least.
All right. So what we're doing is we're doing the top 10 books of all time.
No.
Mm-mm.
No.
We're doing our top 10 recommendations.
There's a big difference.
I customized my list based on the chat. So knowing Darren Wagner, K Manifesto, Oz Great Says, Johnny Cage is one of my big ones. Like all these folks, like I customized this list based on what I thought they would like that I also liked. And I have my list ready compared to what I'm going to tell you why I think they will like it. So hopefully they will.
This is a list of top 10 books to get somebody into comics, or if you've not read comics. For me, this is not my top 10 books.
Yes.
All right, there you go. You heard it from both of them. Apparently, I don't know what's going on. Nothing unusual there. Let's say hello to the chat. D-Wag's in the house. Mr. Von Stugel saying hello. Amanda, great to see Amanda here. Sensational addition to the community. She's really putting in, which is great to see. Mo Biggs, good to see Mo. We got B Rose. Who else we got? Oz Great Sage. Yeah, Oz is everywhere. It's always great to see Oz. Scrolling down. K Manifesto starting his own channel with Dojo Kun. And there's Dojo Kun there, Siamese on Indiegogo. Go check it out.
Did you say hi to Justin Timberlake?
I haven't seen him yet. Have I missed him? We've got Booty Juice. He may be doing something for me very shortly. Very excited.
Nice.
Dojo Kun, Mo Biggs.
Booty Juice is pretty good. He just needs to change his name to his real name, but I like his art.
He's really good. Yeah, he's really good. I got Shane's in the house.
It's hard to take him serious. It's hard to take him serious with the name of Booty Juice.
In Sync is here. Johnny Cage. Yeah, there we go. The old jokes have started. George has waited 300 years for this. Jose Garcia. His project is also on Indigo. Lumina Vox. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Eric McIntyre and Norman Lenhart. NTM is here. Jeremy Burtz. We've got heaps of people in here. This is sensational. Appreciate it, guys. You obviously are more interested in this show than the 10 hottest chicks in comics.
I wonder why that would be.
What?
I don't know. Craziness. All right, where do we want to start? I kind of feel like I want to give George control of the show today and just
let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see it. You want me to bring it up?
Yep. So number 10 for me, this recommendation goes out to Amanda B, to Hockey, and to all aspiring letters. So this is Sandman number 50. For those of you that don't know, Sandman was a series that came out in 1989. It was part of DC's Vertigo line, which was more of a mature line of comics. And the only thing that each of the issues had in common from issues 1 through 75 were the writer and the cover artist. Interiors would be changed around. For this issue number 50, it's a standalone issue. It's called Ramadan, so it's a one-shot. You could read this and absolutely nothing else of the series and follow the story. And the reason why I selected this comic was for multiple reasons. For Amanda, I thought she would appreciate the story. For Hockey, I think he'll really like the art in this book. But as I was saying before, it was for the aspiring letters. I love the lettering in this book. I think Todd.
You would recommend it to Phil Diaz as well, then?
Absolutely. Todd Klein lettered this book, and I think he is actually the greatest letterer in comics history. I want to show you some of the letters that are done in this book.
Ooh.
This is like nothing I've ever seen in my life. This is just one page.
Sorry to interrupt, George. Check out that S and the H that you just had up there. They intertwine.
Yep. The lettering in this, I didn't even show you the first page, which is just a lettered page. It's absolutely stunning. Look at the O right there. This is like something I've never seen before. But I'm going to just go through a couple other pages.
That's a lie. That's called cursive in the 1860s, George. You've seen this.
Hold on. I'm going to show you something else. Show you something else, Rob. This is a conversation that the character Morpheus, who is the Sandman, is having with the main character in this story. Oops, it's a little too much of a zoom. Look at this. When do you see lettering like this? Can't you just tell how this character's voice sounds? Look at those word bubbles there. Look how it's black with the white lettering. Look at the gorgeous lines here in this art.
Love it.
They actually made a statue out of this character after this story came out. This art by P. Craig Russell is absolutely stunning. That's a little 2-page part of the story that I really appreciate. But this last page, it just stunned me. When I saw this, when I first picked this up off the shelf years ago, I never saw a mainstream book look like this. I know now coloring standards have really advanced, and this could be colored even more amazingly. But for 1993, you have to understand, this absolutely knocked my socks off. I think Amanda would really like this book. I think Hockey would like this book. And I think if you're a letterer, this book can show you like what your craft can actually be. That's why I recommend it.
Be interesting to see what Eric Withers thinks of the lettering if he's read that book. So that's your number 10, George. Do you want to type it out in the chat just so people know what it is?
Oh, sure. That's a great idea.
I'll be back in 2 seconds. Leroy.
Did we lose Rob?
He said to be back. So the thing is, I'm not going to individual floppies. There's no way in hell I was going to do that. So a lot of mine are trade paperbacks, series, what we call runs, George. So that's how I divvied it up. So these are not individual issues. I'm going in sequential order of how I recommend these. So now that we're going from 10 to 1, my 10 and 9 are real heavy hitters. These are not books that I would suggest anybody reads first. My number 10 book, there was a gentleman that worked for Marvel for a long time, George, was Stan Lee. And he kept getting hosed over. So finally he went to DC and did his own thing. He set into motion probably the greatest mythos of any comics. He inspired things like Thanos for Marvel. This would be New Gods by Jack Kirby. This is pretty much follows Orion as he's trying to stop Darkseid from getting the anti-life equation. The world building in this book is excellent. When you're going through New Genesis and Apocalypse, the reason why it's a heavy hitter is there's a lot going on in this book. Okay, there's a lot of world building, a lot of character development, and it's kind of it's very old. There's a lot of Kirby crackle in it. So if you're a newer comic book fan, you're not going to appreciate it until you get to that level. But I have to recommend New Gods at number 10.
That's a tremendously great choice. Rob, you've heard us talk about that one before, correct?
Yeah.
There's actually multiple story titles from that franchise. It's New Gods, it's Mr. Miracle, it's Forever People. But you recommend the flagship New Gods, correct?
Absolutely.
Yep. Are you trying to get it up there? Yep.
Yeah, my computer's doing weird things. Is this it?
That's it.
That's it.
That's
so like I said,
Orion.
Right. So like I said, it's not something you're going to get into right away, but as you progress through your comic book love, I guess, this will become a greater and greater comic book. I would have the in top 10. This is higher than 10. This is top 5. But as far as recommendations, like I'd only recommend it. You read a bunch of books before you get to New Gods.
Awesome. And people in chat, let us know your 10. We'll like to see what you've got as well. Maurice says Rob was waiting for the movie, but it was cancelled. What do you think of this one, George?
Tremendous. I love Jack Kirby. And it is odd, like Leroy said something which I do find 100% true and strange. DC has always respected Kirby much more than Marvel did, but really Jack Kirby's only addition to the DC universe was the New Gods. Think of all the stuff that he did for Marvel. It was an odd dynamic. I don't know why that was, but a lot of people say this was his greatest creation. I mean, this was all straight from him. Like a lot of the other stuff that's attributed to him is split with Stan or Joe Simon or someone else. This is just Jack.
This is a masterclass on how you build mythos and a world and characters in comics. That's what this is a masterclass in. But it's very deep.
Why is it a hard read?
Because there's so much going on. There's so much building going on, and the art style is very retro. So for somebody getting new, they're not. It's not going to catch their eye at first.
All right, we've got some 10s coming in.
I just want to mention one more thing real fast.
Yeah,
he was working on one book a month and another bi-monthly series at the same time. He was drawing a page and a half a day to get this series out. So he was doing 36 pages a month.
That's crazy.
To get this out. Sorry, go ahead.
It makes you wonder, like, what would have happened if they had just as much time as they wanted to work on these books, not deadlines. Doja Kun says, my 10 is a miniseries Man of Steel. George, any thoughts on that?
We're going to talk about all these later. Let's not, just read them out.
All right. Manifesta says All-Star Superman. Eric McIntyre says Spawn issues 1 to 100. I think that's it. I don't think I've missed anyone. But if I have, apologies. Okay, cool. What do you think about each other's choices there?
I would have figured New Gods would be on somebody's. I actually anticipated what Leroy would have and kind of customized based on, well, I know this is going to be covered. I'm going to pick this for this person, kind of a thing.
Yeah, like George and I have, as much as we disagree on stuff outside of comics, on the comics we align very hard. It's we're pretty much in line. So next time we do something like this, maybe getting somebody with a little different skew might be good, because George and I align very, very similarly on comic books.
Hockey says Red Sun.
Oh, that would be in my top. That's a perfect example of something that would be in my top 10 books, but didn't make my top 10 recommendations.
All right, George, let's go.
Okay, sharing my screen. Number 9. This one is recommended to NTM Hicks Villain. By the way, you might not be in chat right now, but I still hope you read this if you see this later. NTM Hicks Villain, Past Master Dan, Rick Saylor, Mel B, and Leroy. Leroy, did you ever read this?
No.
Okay, good. This is The Hobbit from J.R.R. Tolkien, but it's adapted for comics, and it's adapted by Chuck Dixon with art by David Wenzel and hand lettered by Bill Pearson. This is one of the most beautiful books I've ever seen. Each page is hand painted. And The Hobbit is a hard book to adapt. If anyone has seen the movies that came out by Peter Jackson, you can see that. And I've never seen anything more close to it than in this book. This is just what some of the interior pages look like.
No, George, I enjoyed the book, the novel, The Hobbit, so much that I don't know if I'd want to read it in comic style.
I think you'd want to read this book just so you could see the beautiful imagery that's painted throughout this book. I didn't keep everything, but just seeing the town of Hobbiton, seeing Bilbo, seeing Gandalf, and the beautiful paintings from David Wenzel, and the astounding hand lettering from Bill Pearson.
Hand lettering, geez.
Yeah, it's like nothing I'd ever seen. I have no idea how long it took these people to make this book.
It's a very painterly style, George.
Yeah, this is.
I do like that.
I forgot to mention earlier, I limited myself because Rob asked me before, do you have any Marvel books? I refuse to put any more than 2 Marvel or 2 DC books on this list.
Oh boy.
And I tried to capture
Wow.
something from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Hmm.
So that way I
Can
had
I-
a diverse list.
Can I blow your mind, George?
Yeah,
I've read this.
I don't
own
believe
this
you.
one. Yeah, I owned this when I was a kid. I might still have it somewhere, actually.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I as I tell you, my memory is pretty horrible, but this is the cover I remember here.
That's the collected edition. That's one of the things I wanted to tell everyone. If it's something you can't afford, you can get it on a collected edition on Amazon very, very cheaply. That's it. So I really recommend this book. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, if you're a fan of the Peter Jackson movies, I think if you read this comic, you'll escape into this world.
Hmm.
Leroy, I hope you give it a chance.
I think, like, even if you don't want to read it, visually from memory and what you just shown, like, it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to say that George is probably recommending on the art because he knows what I like, and yeah, it's visually stunning. So, and I have a very book coming up on my list that has that same kind of style, and we'll talk about that later.
I love how George just goes, "I don't believe you."
You keep on saying, even like you've told me for so long, I don't read many comics. If you would have told me you read that, like, I would have given you a little bit more respect on that subject.
No, he hasn't read Dark Knight Returns.
Oh yeah, forgot.
That's so cool. I never would have thought I'd see someone recommend that. That's so cool. Leroy, what you got?
So I got a series by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. George.
Okay, I got like one guess.
Yeah, and it's right, but it's probably the greatest crossover event in DC history. But what it is it's DC trying to unscrew itself, and because everything was just jacked up before this book. So it's another heavy hitter. That's why I have it so low on the list, along with New Gods. These are heavy reading, but there's points in this book that if you don't know what's going on and you see like 3 flashes running around, like you'd be like, "What in the? I don't get this." But this is Crisis on Infinite Earths. So probably the greatest crossover event in comics history, in my estimation. George Perez is a man. I mean, I have that at number 9. So, but again, these 2 books I just list are very heavy, and you don't want to read them right from the get-go.
That's it. Now the going here, Rob, was, I don't know if you remember, but there was a time where there was different versions of the different characters in DC. There would be Batman Earth 2, Batman Earth 3.
Yes.
It kind of was a way to explain, how Batman could have been alive in the 1940s, in the 1960s, and the 1980s. This collapsed all that into modern times, which was like 1986 or 80. When was it?
This is 85.
85.
You should be happy. I know that, George.
I am very impressed. I'm very impressed. So it was a 12-issue series. There was a lot of deaths in this series. A lot. Like
Barry Allen, right?
Yep. Supergirl, you see there is one of them.
Keep talking. I like this.
No, you're not going to. Yeah,
dying.
you will like it, but you have to do a lot of reading before you get to this point, though. If Amanda sat down with this book, this would not get her into comics right away. Like, that's not this book. But this book is number 9 for a reason. But yeah, there's a lot of darkness in everything else. But it's required reading if you're trying to get into comics just later on down the road.
Interesting.
A lot of number 9s in chat, just so you know. I'm trying to keep track.
Joe says X-Men number 1. You got to chuck the number in so I can see it, mate. It's good to see you here too. Dark Knight Returns. Nightwing 35 to 37. That's cool. I like this specific. Not gonna do it.
Well, it's probably a trade, is why you did that.
Specific. Can't do it. 9. Slain the Horned God by Simon Beasley.
Rob, come on.
Joe just said Leroy picks a DC book. Surprise! Every one of my books are DC books.
Yeah. Get the DC books from Leroy out of the way, guys, because they're all DC. Hockey says Sinestro Wars.
It's a great one.
We
And the
have Parker series by Darwin Cook.
that was his adaptation of the Parker novels that Darwin Cook put out. I think they're actually even in hardcover, like almost like book style format. Really beautifully done. Oh, number one.
I discovered the Hobbit comic while looking at stuff in eBay and instantly bought it just last month.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
All right, George, what are we up to? 8?
Oh, okay. Number 8. Sorry about that. A little behind.
It's okay.
Okay. This is a good one. So this one is going to be for Lord Crackhead, Phil Diaz, and Blake from the Splintering. You've heard me talk about Frank Miller a bunch of times, right, Rob?
Mm-hmm.
This is his.
We go to the Church of Frank Miller.
This is his final issue of the series. Now, if you're not familiar, Frank Miller created a character named Elektra, who was Daredevil's love interest. She also happened to be an assassin, and she was employed under the Kingpin. Long story short, she had a huge battle with Bullseye, and he killed her. But during the battle, Bullseye also fell and became paralyzed. He broke several bones in his body, I think including his spine, and was in a hospital bed. Daredevil was completely broken as a man because this was someone he loved, and she had died. So this is Frank Miller's final issue of the series. Interestingly enough, it's not inked by Klaus Janson, who was the longtime inker for Frank. It was inked by Terry Austin, who people probably recognize as being John Byrne's longtime inker. In this issue, Daredevil is confronting Bullseye in a hospital, and he's playing Russian roulette with him.
Cool.
So he has one bullet in that chamber. He has spun it. Now he's going between himself and Bullseye, who is laid in a bed and completely incapacitated, and he's pointing that gun at Bullseye and pulling that trigger.
That's awesome. I love it.
Recounting a story that happened in regards to this gun. Now, keep in mind, here's Bullseye laying in his bed. He can't breathe on his own. He can't eat on his own. There's Daredevil, completely fine. Who is depicted more broken, Bullseye or Daredevil? This book, to me, was recommended to Crackhead, to Phil, to Blake, less for the art, more for the story, but just to show folks in chat how much you can achieve, not just with your art, but with the way your panels are laid out in your art.
Frank Miller's a master at that.
Look how simple these. What do you see in the background here? Like almost nothing, but look how powerful this image is here. How he's portrayed like that. This is a beautiful book. It's chilling. If you were to read this, it's like a one-shot story. If you know the background of it just a little bit, which I just explained to you, I think you would love it.
Awesome. Do you want you chuck that in chat as well, George?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that.
That looked really cool. I like that. I like the whole Russian roulette thing. That's cool. Leroy, what you got?
I got a title by Jeff Johns, and the artist would be Andy Kubert. This is my favorite Flash. So Flashpoint, where he screws up the timeline, like he has to go back and undo it. It's another crossover. It's really good. Andy Kubert destroys this book art-wise. Like, I love it. So I like it even more than EVS's. Everybody points out the art on Flash Rebirth. I think Kubert does a better Flash than EVS. So it's a good introduction because it is a crossover and it's easy to follow. And this is it right here. So if you want to get into Cooper, if you want to get into Flash, you want a good Flash story, you want to know what the Flash is all about, this is the book for you on your first shot of getting into what Flash is all about.
But is it the Flashpoint where he has to, run back and change time?
Yes.
Flash. Yeah, that you're gonna have to sell it to me a bit harder, man, because I hate that.
No, I don't. You said you're reading these books. I don't have to sell. All I have to do is list it, and you're going to read it. So I don't have to sell it to you.
I don't know, George. How about you sell it to me?
Rob, I'm going to tell you right now, I only have one selection for you. So
Oh.
I have 10 listed. I'm not going to expect you to read all 10.
Mm-hmm.
Only one is for you. We haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
And if people
let's-
want a selling point, they get into it at the Snyder Cut, the Justice League. They get into a little of the time travel at the end, and this kind of expounds upon that. So there you go.
All right. Dojo Kun says Avengers Volume 3, 1-5, Perez Busiek. Yeah. Spider-Man 8, The Death of John DeWolf.
Jean DeWolf. That's by Peter David. That's actually an excellent story.
Blackest Night.
Hockey's on fire in chat today. Everything is... Oh, a dupe.
Blackest Night and Brightest Day.
I have
Crackhead.
those, but I have them in a little different format. We'll talk about them later.
Craig says one of my all-time Flash stories. Great pick. I agree with love Flash Rebirth, but I agree with Leroy that Flashpoint would have been a better jumping off point. It undid Flash Rebirth. Is that all the number 8s? I think it is. Okay, cool. George?
All right, my number 7. Like I said, I'm trying to be diverse with my selections as far as eras and stories and times and everything. So my number 8 is Trespasser from Alterna. This one is recommended to Eddie Winkler, Leandro, Johnny Rando, Jim Cox, and the Canuck. So one of the reasons why I picked this for those folks, well, for Eddie and Leandro, I know they're fathers of daughters. And for Jim and for the Canuck, I don't think they like mainstream books. I'm hoping they'll be willing to give Alterna a shot. And Johnny, I think, would just love this book, Johnny Rando. So this story is basically about a father who is a single father. He has a daughter and he has his dog. And there is a shortage of food. And there also happens to be an invasion of Earth. So you can see here's the father, there is his dog, and here's this alien creature. I have not heard of these creators in the past, Justin Ryan and Christian Rossi. But this book, the art style fits it perfectly. He has an encounter with this alien creature who, as you can see, gets trapped in one of his traps. He was had a bear trap there, and this alien gets trapped in there. He then takes this alien creature and brings it to his home to try and help it. And this is his daughter. Something happens. I don't want to spoil the story too much, but the father has to do what he thinks is right to protect his daughter. And it leads to some interesting consequences. This is actually a very affordable book. It was released as a 4-issue series, but Alterna Giants, you can buy them for $5. I really recommend this story. It's my favorite story to come from Alterna.
That's a pretty big recommendation, George.
Yep.
Was something weird with her eye? Bring it back up for a second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Were her eyes weird?
I don't want to give up too much of the story away, but yes, it's not drawn oddly. That is intentional, what you see on the screen.
That's pretty cool that an Alterna book made a top 10 recommendation.
I feel like I should have taken pages from all these books, taken pictures. Now I feel bad, George. I didn't go that mile.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, Leroy, what you got?
I've got a book by J. Michael Straczynski and Shane Davis. A little book where you get the ultimate coming of age story. Probably the best coming of age story of any superhero book. It's Superman Earth 1 Volume 1. If you've seen the Man of Steel movie and you wonder what it would be like if all the shit that was put into it was stripped out and you got a good movie, this would be that book. It's very Catcher in the Rye. I feel like, George. Earth 1. So it's just Superman coming into his own. You see it. Shane does such a good job illustrating like an awkward teenage gangly Superman coming into his own by the end of the book into like full-blown Superman. So it's great. Shane is my second favorite Superman artist. I won't get to my favorite Superman artist of all time later in the list. It's just a great book. I'm not usually a fan of Straczynski. This is his only appearance on my list. There's a couple guys that'll be here twice, but it's just a really good book. In a great jumping on point if you're getting into comics, because like I said, it is a coming of age story of Superman. So there you go.
What do you think, George, about this one?
I love it. My only knock on it is the final chapter isn't illustrated by Shane.
That's why I said Earth 1, Volume 1.
Yeah. So like Volume 1, I love it. Volume 2 is good. Then when it gets to Volume 3, like, and it's a drastic change in the art to me. Like they didn't even find someone that could match his style. It was just completely, if you ask me. But Volume 1, excellent.
Even the art that Shane does in this, where it's sci-fi related, where you have like Zod coming in and whatever, it's the ships that he draws are really cool. It's just a great book. So,
That's sick.
Yep, there you go.
Awesome. All right, what have we got in chat? Chuck your numbers in, guys. 7, Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Volume 1. Serenity.
One sec. Eric's asking what super. This is a graphic novel, Eric. It's not a run. You just get Superman Earth 1, Volume 1. You can get it for about $10 on eBay right now, I think.
That one right there.
It's on Amazon too, I think, at a discount. So
Serenity, Those Left Behind. This is for fans of Firefly who don't read comics. Interesting. The Amazing Spider-Man Gathering of 5 and its final chapter, 440 or 441. Interesting depiction of the Green Goblin in Gathering of 5 arc. Okay, cool. I think that's it for people.
No, Dojo Kun.
Dojo Kun, the long anticipated JLA Avengers crossover. Cool. Awesome. All right, what do we got, George?
Okay, number 6. Like I said, I'm trying to be as diverse as humanly possible with publishers, different styles, different costs for people have in their pocket to spend. So for me, my number 6, let me know when you can see my screen.
Oh,
Replicator number 2.
Oh,
so
dude.
this, and I've said this before, I've said it privately, Crackhead has heard me say it, Leroy's heard me say it. This is my favorite ever crowdfunding book I've ever backed in my life. Number 1. I like the first one, that's no disrespect, but this one took it up a notch like I've never seen. I had never heard of Aaron Alfeche until this book. This is the very first thing I love and appreciate. I do not know how long it took you to write such a thoughtful, concise, yet eloquent beginning where it explains to you what happened in the previous issue. This is not something you see anymore. If you pick up a book, it's like you start on page 1. I feel as though if you haven't read issue 1, you can read this and not have read issue 1. When I look at the book, look at the scale that you're seeing here, folks. Look at this art. You can see how large this facility is, and watch how the action comes close to you in these panels. 1, 2, 3, coming right up on to the reader. This is probably the most famous page from the book, one, because this is Rob's avatar, but we have seen these mechs over and over again, these characters. Look at the colors on this. Look at the violence that you're seeing. My personal favorite page is this one.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Look at this character's face without knowing what's going on here. By the way, blurred out some of the bad words, Rob. Shame on you. I can tell the emotions of this character just looking at their face. Look how his face changes from this screen to this screen to this screen. It is so immensely hard to convey expressions on a face in a comic, all on the same page like that. I can see why folks stole your artist from you, Rob, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron's a genius.
Before I forget, I don't want to forget to mention the river, which is the river of corpses, where they throw the bodies, which is where I mentioned throwing your wife in the river before. There is the wife, and there is the river.
This is some deep lore right here.
This is great.
I didn't come up with this. This is from Rob. You guys got to stop bringing it up like it was me that said this.
It's fantastic. Yeah, I love that second panel. George,
I'm sorry, I stopped sharing.
He's talking about it. That second panel is fantastic. The way he just completely that angle. Like, how does that possibly work? Yet it does.
To give folks a quick tip, and I'm sure Rob will hate me for this. If you don't have the funds to back books 1 through 3 on Indiegogo, and not everyone does, and that's fine. My highest recommendation is to back book 3 and add book 2. You can even get book 2 at a discount by buying the misprinted version, which I think isn't even that bad of a misprint. It'll save you a few bucks and it'll catch you up on the story.
Are we
I
done
can't
shilling now,
recommend
George?
this book enough. I'm just telling you a
Hang on.
way for the chat to save a few bucks.
Go back to that double page spread, George.
I'm sorry.
Rob, you have him memorized.
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing that's cool about it. Is the fact that when I wrote it, I just said let's do a double page spread. Of the facility, tanks, all that kind of stuff. Aaron added these 3 panels in himself.
Well, you showed us the original, what this was supposed to be before Alfecci got involved, and
yeah. Let's
God,
not talk about that. Let's not talk about that.
You hired Alfecci, yes.
This was all Rob's doing in my mind, just so you know that. This was all Rob's doing.
Aaron, like his scale and detail is crazy. He's really quite special. That's really cool, George. I really appreciate that you put that there. I missed someone's number 7. I think it was Eric's, and it was for me too.
I'm sorry, I didn't mention who I recommended that for. That's my mistake. Billy Basco, Black Rose Comics, and Mo Biggs.
Mo Biggs.
Yeah,
he said it's great.
Mo didn't know where that's where the saying from the river came from. He needs to read that book.
I thought he read it. He may have read it. I'm not sure though. Maybe.
Well, I'm not sure, but Billy Basco, Black Rose, and Mo Biggs were my 3 people I recommended for that.
Release Rob Reed.
Oh no, we don't want that. No. However bad you think the edit is going to be for the Lucent, Rob has shown us some behind the scenes stuff of the artists that he had previously before Alfecci, and it's worse than anything that would be in the Crackhead cut.
Mo says George is trying to rewrite history. I'm telling you, Rob came up with the river thing. I'm telling you.
I mean, why it was so confusing though is because she's not thrown technically into the river.
Well, don't spoil it.
Not thrown into the river though. That's why everyone was confused.
She was gonna be thrown, wasn't she?
I don't know.
Don't spoil it.
All right, Leroy, what you got?
We're at number 6.
Yeah,
this is a run with people writing on it like Chuck Dixon and Alan Grant. We have artists like Jim Aparo, Norm Brayfogle, and Graham Nolan. This is Nightfall. It's a Batman run. It introduces characters like Bane and Azrael. The Bane in particular part of this book is great because it's going on the mental anguish of how Bane is just wearing Batman's ass out. And then after he breaks him mentally, he breaks his freaking back. So that's Nightfall. This is some of the best work ever in comics. It would be higher if it was just my top 10. But as recommendations, I feel like you should get to know certain other aspects of Batman before you get right on into Nightfall.
I feel like I could get right into this though. Like Bane interests me. I like seeing people getting hurt. So breaking the bat is cool. We all know what that's. We've all heard about that before.
The one thing that Leroy didn't mention that I like is Bane knows he can't beat Batman one-on-one, so he actually breaks everyone out of Arkham.
Well, that's part of the mental challenge of it. I did mention it, just not the way you wanted me to.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, no, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but now Batman is now worn out, and now Bane can face him.
Right.
You see so many characters in this book. How big is this, Leroy?
It's like 60 issues, I think.
Wow.
I'd have to go look, but it's a big book. That's why it's not higher, right? Like, so I give it a lot of thought of in what order I'm putting my recommendations, so I've given it a lot of thought. Like I said, this would be higher in my top 10 all time. But as far as recommending it, I would say there's other books you should get into before you get into Nightfall.
So, like, if you're interested, can you pick up Nightfall as a trade?
Absolutely. All these things I'm listing are either graphic novel. I don't think I have. Maybe my number one, actually George and I is probably number one, is a floppy. But other than that, everything else, this is a trade. You can get this in trade.
Awesome. All right, let's have a look through chat.
Some of the chats are some of the ones I have listed left, so I don't want to say too much. Okay.
Death of Superman, number 6. Farmhand issue 1 is a short series about an organically growing and harvesting body parts. That sounds awesome. Okay, cool. I like that. John Byrne's run on with She-Hulk in the Fantastic Four.
We may or may not talk about John Byrne here in a little bit.
$2.95. Craven's Last Hunt. Kingdom Come: The Art. Jose Garcia's Jump the Gun. We'll get to that in a second. George, what do you got next?
Number 5.
Yep.
My number 5. This is recommended for Rob Arnold, Christine Venner, Eric McIntyre, and The Replicant. Have you ever heard of this series, Miracle Man? Rob?
Let's go with no.
Did you hear of it and you're playing?
I don't know. It rings a bell, but I mean, that would be all it would
Miracle Man was originally Marvel Man, and he was a character from the UK from the 1950s. Alan Moore wanted to bring the character back, but put his unique spin on it. So the original characters were Marvel Man, Kid Marvel, and Young Marvel Man. That was the original 3 characters. They had to change it to Miracle Man because Marvel sued them for the rights of the name. That pissed off Alan Moore like you would not believe. We'll get into that some other time. So what Alan Moore did was he took these characters and then made them his own. Instead of being like these goofy little 1950s, hey, look, we're going against space aliens and stuff like that, he delved into the psyche of these characters. And as you can see here you are going into the mind of this character. What happens is there's an event, and I won't give you too much of what happens in the event, but there's an explosion. Young Marvel Man supposedly perishes. Miracle Man, excuse me. Miracle Man loses his memory, and Kid Marvel Man grows up and loses his powers. Miracle Man does not know he is Miracle Man anymore, but he says his word to change his name. Like, Shazam says Shazam. His word is Kimoda, which is basically atomic backwards. And once he does that, he regains all of his memory. And the book explores stuff like things that would bug a person to read like you. You would read like a book about Superman, and he'll be standing on the ground, and a giant meteor will come, and he'll just break it. But Alan Moore will explain, well, how come Superman didn't sink into the ground when that happened? Sure, he's invulnerable, but that doesn't mean he doesn't, like, the physics don't apply to him. But he delves into all those little tropes and explains every single one of them, which makes it really interesting. The part of the story that is really deep and disturbing is Kid Miracle Man never lost his powers. He grew up with them and used them for evil.
Awesome.
So there is a massive, and I mean massive, battle in issue 15. And you asked me once, George, what's the biggest battle you ever remember seeing in comics? And I neglected to mention this to you. I actually couldn't show you some of the stuff. I was afraid you were going to get flagged as to what happens in this comic.
Awesome.
But it is one of the bloodiest and most disturbing. I mean, you'll see people decapitated in the streets, limbs torn off, like hundreds of thousands of deaths in this battle.
I love it.
You can get this in a collected edition. Let me tell you some of the artists in this book. John Totalbin, Rick Veitch, Alan Davis, Gary Leach. Some of these guys are from 2000 AD. You know that, right? With Judge Dredd. I think you would love this book. You can get it in 4 collected editions on Amazon right now, like trades, I guess you'd call it, or hardcovers. You would be very inspired if you read this book.
Oh, that's cool.
That's my recommendation to you.
Everyone else is like, Rob's like, be like, I'm there. Leroy, what you got?
So 2000 to now has not been a very good time in comics. This is the only omnibus I have on my list. And in fairness, you could not read any comics from 2000 to now and just read this omnibus and you're fine. This is the Jeff Johns Green Lantern omnibus. It includes stuff like The Blackest Night, The Brightest Day, Rebirth. You have people like Shane Davis and EVS in it. Like it is what the Green Lantern Corps is. It talks about the Red Lanterns. It gets all into what Green Lantern is all about. Now it is an omnibus. It's expensive, but keep in mind you will never have to read anything else Green Lantern ever again. This is the definitive what the Green Lantern is and what it's about. I don't know how many books are in it. It's a lot. So, but you could read this from a DC side. Now, I'm not a Marvel guy, and you don't have to read anything else in the last 20 years. This is all you need.
This it here?
Yes, right. There you go.
It's huge.
Yes, it is.
It's probably 1,000 pages.
Oh, look, Ethan, right there. Very cool. So does it touch on all the different lantern?
Like I said, the Red Lanterns in there, right? Exactly. It's all here. Like it's great value. I know I paid $100 for the volume 1. It's pretty expensive.
Damn.
But coming back and going through the last 20 years, what I've collected in comics, I wish I didn't. All I had to do was pick this up. Like that's all I really had to do.
Cool art.
This is when EVS came into his own, like right in Rebirth and some of these others. He's in some of the off issues too. He picks up and comes in and out of different issues that will be in this omnibus, by the way. But yeah, EVS really comes to his own. This is the second appearance by Jeff Johns on my list. Now I know a lot of people don't think. I think Jeff Johns is one of the greats in writing and in comic books. Period. Ever. So I have a lot of respect for Jeff Johns. So there you go.
This isn't Ethan's art, though, is it? It doesn't look like his
that
style.
cover is not. But
no.
No,
but you go through. He's featured a lot in the book.
Yeah.
And so is Shane actually. So there you go.
It's more like an older school type art style. That's cool. That's interesting, Leroy. I'd be interested in that. Let's have a look at what we've got in chat. Superman Infinity City, the art is the best. Who else we got? Monster MD from Mr. Von Stugel. That's cool, man. That's really cool. Oz says Rob is waiting for someone to say Judge Dredd. Yeah, it's not going to happen today. That's for sure. Eric says solid omnibus. Joe says great pick, Leroy. Punk Rock Jesus is a great recommendation. Have you heard of that, George? Hockey says the death of Superman all the way through to the resurrection. Invincible Compendium #1. Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I do like Invincible, I gotta say. All right.
Doja Kun #5.
Where
my favorite. This is the second time you missed him.
Oh yeah. My favorite character is She-Hulk, and she would be much higher up, but as a recommendation, it's here. Marvel graphic novel 18, The Sensational She-Hulk. Have you read much She-Hulk, George?
Okay.
I
know there's a lot of John Byrne enthusiasts that like that character and like John Byrne. That's just not for me. That's cool.
Yeah. All right. What do you got for us?
Yep. #4, a totally obscure one. But I have this on here for Clayton Barton, Johnny Cage, The Replicant, Oz Great Sage, and Shane O'Sullivan. These are folks I remember seeing in How to Draw Comics. Clayton, obviously, I know is an artist. Johnny Cage, I know is an artist. For all aspiring artists out there, I think there's a lot of different and unique art styles in this book that are all just phenomenal and all work in comics great. What do you think about this cover, Rob?
Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
So this is an artist named Barry Windsor Smith. Mainstream fans would know him as the guy that did the Weapon X series of Wolverine. I like his independent work best. This is just a beautiful cover. There's 4 or 5 different artists in this book. One is Barry Windsor Smith. And like without even reading these words, you can kind of get a sense of what's happening in this book. The line work is absolutely stunning. Look at the hair on this character's head. Look what's going on here. I like the
interior page better than I like the cover.
Okay, fair enough. Well, this is just one of the artists. This is Barry Windsor Smith. You're also going to have John Bolton painted interiors here. You're going to have one of my favorite artists, Jeffrey Jones. Once again, painted interiors. Look at the lettering on this. Just so unique. Lila Dowling and Scott Hampton, all within the same book. Very different art styles. I think if you were an artist, you would get really inspired by it. Just not something you would see in modern day comics. Different mediums are explored. I tried to pick something I think an artist would like, and this was my choice.
Awesome. Leroy.
We're at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody in the chat to settle down because they've been talking about this book. This is a 4-issue series put out by Nemesis of Comic Gate, Mark Waid, and artist named Alex Ross. Kingdom Come. This is the Dark Knight Returns of Superman, if you will. Lois Lane has been killed. He takes flight to the Fortress of Solitude. He pretty much lives in virtual reality for 10 years. He's just given up on humanity. Things aren't looking good. And then when he does come back, he uses pretty straightforward, almost brutal tactics to get everybody else in line. All the rest of the superheroes. The art on this book is freaking phenomenal. So I have this at number 4. It's a great Superman story.
It's everyone. Everyone's in it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's right. It is, but it's a great Superman story, George. Like I said, it's kind of like the Dark Knight Returns of Superman, where because he's dealing with loss. It's probably the only way you can make Superman relatable. So they did. They made him feel some real loss in this book. So it's a really good read. And like I said, the art is some of the best I've ever seen in a comic book.
Alex Ross on art.
Yep.
Yeah, his style is so crazy. Like, it's amazing to look at. You don't see people do art like in that style much.
He paints everything.
Amazing. So what? Superman, Lois dies. Superman gets really pissed off, and
he abandons humanity in essence for 10 years and lives. He pretends he's a farmer in virtual reality for 10 years in Smallville. Like, that's what he's doing. That's like, he's so disenfranchised. Yep.
Interesting. All right, cool. All right, let's have a look at chat. What have we got? Dojo Kuhn, Tales of the New Teen Titans, the Judas Contract, 42 and 44, and the 1984 annual. Have you read that, George?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
That's the first appearance of Nightwing, I believe. I think prior to that he was Robin.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Well, that's an improvement, isn't it? My next 4 are all Superman. Sensational. Superman Under the Red Sun.
Like I said, one of my top 10 period, but it would just be outside the top 10 in my recommendation list.
Number 4, Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows, Volume 1 and 2, Go No Further. Yep, he watercolors. Alex Ross plotted the story. Waid basically wrote the dialogue. This is essentially an Alex Ross masterwork.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Aliens versus Predator 1 to 4. Tell me more. That sounds really cool.
It is good.
Watchmen. I think you've just fallen off George's good graces hockey with that one. Kong Skull Island at number 4 from Shane. What's up, Rick? Good to see you, man. Watchmen is phenomenal. Alex Ross on Justice and Marvels is great too. Fanatra's in the house too. Hey, how you doing, Fanatra? That's pretty cool. All right, George. Next up.
Yep. My number 3. This one is out to Danger Vanessa, Mr. Von Stugel, Russ Leach, and Random Task. So this is Superman Annual 11, and Rob, I promised you I was going to recommend a Superman book. This was the one I chose. This is by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Are you familiar with those names? Not trying to be funny.
Alan Moore, yes. Dave Gibbons, no.
Okay. So in this issue, Superman receives... Well, let me just show you the first page. This is the first page of the book.
Look at all that dialogue, George.
Look at the outlines of the panels. What do you see here, Rob?
Red.
Correct. Okay, I'm going to get to the next page. This is now white, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you're introduced to the main characters, Wonder Woman, Robin, and Batman. By the way, this, everyone, is Jason Todd Robin. A lot of people talk a lot about how Jason Todd was a boring character. This is a tremendous story. Jason Todd was not a boring character. He was written poorly. Once Alan Moore wrote him very interestingly. The character is only going to be as good as the writer writing him. This story is incredible. So they're going to visit Superman on his birthday. When they go to the Fortress of Solitude to meet him, he's already received a gift. This is the Black Mercy. This flower penetrates the victim and shows them their deepest desires. So when you see that first page, this red signifies you are in the Black Mercy's reality at the time. The red and the white signify the difference between the reality of the story and the reality of the victim of the Black Mercy.
Cool.
So little things like that I really appreciate. Things like that I've not seen before. This is probably as violent and as devastating I've seen Superman fight in a comic at that time. This is all prior to Doomsday, mind you. This is the character, Mongol, that they have to face. He kind of became popular later, but it just shows you the scale of the character compared to who he's fighting. Batman and Robin are completely outclassed against him. Really, he's Superman's near equal. The idea here is Batman and Robin have to kind of try and help Superman while Wonder Woman tries to fight him off. And it's a vicious, vicious battle that she ultimately can't win. But Superman does eventually get free, and he is not happy because he had to basically tear out his heart to come back to reality. I won't tell you what he was dreaming, but it was devastating for him to have to leave that realm. And this is probably the most popular panel from the book. As you can see, when he's ready to fight, he yells out "burn" and just completely obliterates Mongol.
Cool. Does Robin die?
Not in this book.
That's a shame.
To show
this looks pretty cool, though.
What? This is
George, you're showing the whole book.
I'm just showing the final page. I'm just showing you here how once again the panels change from white to red to black. Everything can be used in a book. People get used to saying, well, you know, this is what a word bubble should look like. This is how the letters should look. This is how the panels should look. No one is trying to do something different. And that's one of the reasons why I'm showing these books. Notice you can change the shape of a word bubble. You can change the styles of the lettering. You can change what's in between those panels. You can do all this stuff. You can explore. I mean, you're doing whatever you want, Rob, now. Like, this is your creation. And I'm talking to all the creators. Like, try something new. Try something different. You're not under any sort of corporate umbrella anymore.
It's awesome.
Awesome. I think this book is great.
Have you read that one, Leroy?
Yep.
Good?
Of course I have. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. What you got for us?
1986, George. Probably the most important year in comic books.
Transformers, the movie.
A long time, maybe ever. I would submit to you, George, that remember when you were like 50 and Babe Ruth went from the Boston Red Sox to the New York Yankees? Do you remember that?
Yes.
I submit to you, George or John Byrne's The Man of Steel. This guy was a Marvel superstar, and he went to DC to do Superman. And what was produced is he made Superman so much better than what he was before. What he did is scale back the powers a little bit. Clark Kent was no longer an idiot anymore. He was more of, you want to relate to Superman, you can relate to him on Clark Kent's level. He's just a good guy. Lex Luthor is no longer running around in purple and freaking yellow anymore. He's wearing a business suit. Yeah, like John Byrne he draws the Superman for me. Like that's Superman to me. I see John Byrne one and then Shane Davis second, but yeah, he's the definitive Superman even to now. So there you go. I got that at number 3.
George, what do you think of this?
No, I mean, in '86 they wanted to relaunch Superman, like completely redo him, and they had Byrne redo his origin, and whatever he said was going to be canon, and that's how they did it, and it needed to be done. And yeah, I think you should check it out.
That must have been a huge deal at the time, like going to the mortal enemies and having such a massive influence on the character.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Let's have a look what chat's saying. Black Gutters have represented dream sequences in manga for a long time. I hope this comment doesn't get me banned. Eric says that's my number 1. Dojo number 3, Dark Phoenix Saga, Uncanny X-Men 129 to 138. Brian certainly knows his comic book numbers, that's for sure. Eric says John Byrne, Man of Steel 1 to 12 is a must read. Random Task says John Byrne was gold in the 80s with runs on X-Men, Fantastic Four, She-Hulk, and Man of Steel. Virgil, number 9, Alien Earth Wars. Okay, cool.
Hockey.
Why the Last Man? Interesting. Have you read that one, George?
No, I have not. I've heard so many things about it. That's the one with the guy and his monkey, correct?
I don't know. I've only skimmed through it. From my understanding, he's the last man on Earth.
Oh yeah, I have it wrong.
Yeah, but Hockey confirmed that for me because my comic knowledge is not as good as George's. Thunderbun says, I got Byrne's Man of Steel hardcover volume 1 on my shelf. Volume 2 is going to live there soon.
I don't have a lot of hard copies, and I am going to pick up the Man of Steel and get both of them. So there you go.
Injustice from Eric McIntyre. George, what have you got? Number 2.
Number 2. Hold on. This one's going to go out too. All right. Hear me out on this one. Corey Barton, K Manifesto, Dojo Kun, and Unhinged Entertainment. Let me know, Dojo and K, if you've actually read this already. But I have this for Corey as well. This is Creepy number 63. For those of you that aren't familiar with this, this was a black and white horror magazine from a company called Warren. They had 3 big publications, Creepy, Eerie, and Vampirella. Creepy was a black and white horror anthology. This specific issue has my favorite horror short story ever written. It's actually it creeped me out when I first read it. It's by Bernie Wrightson and Bruce Jones.
Wow, that art. That's fantastic.
And it's called Jennifer. And let me know if Dojo's saying he's read this or he hasn't. But in this story, you have a hunter going through the woods, as you can see here. He stumbles upon this person with this beautiful woman here, tied up with her hands tied behind her back. And clearly he's getting ready to decapitate her. So as you go forward, this character is now telling this person you have to stop, and he refuses, and he kills the character. Saves the woman. The last thing the person says before he dies is Jennifer. So he now turns to the woman who he just saves, and this is what he sees.
Holy moly.
I have more pages of the story, but I don't want to show you. It is extraordinarily dark and it is extraordinarily violent. I know some of these pages shouldn't be shown. The art is about as amazing I've ever seen black and white art in my entire life. When I see black and white art now, I don't see tones like this. I don't see shading like this. To me, it looks like black and white where the color wasn't colored. This is very clearly meant to be black and white. And I know it's Bernie Wrightson. I know he was the master, but like this is beautiful black and white as the way it is. This story will give people chills. So hopefully the folks that recommend it will check it out. If you can't find the individual issue, it was reprinted in a series called Creepy by Bernie Wrightson. And that's actually, I think, available on Amazon too.
That was fantastic.
Oh, Dojo didn't read it. Yes.
Neither did Manifesto, George.
Okay, that's Creepy number 63.
Johnny Cage says, for the love of God, stay away from the colored version. So they obviously colored it at some point. Rick Saylor says, this will be on my buy list. Looks awesome. Oh, cool. Very cool. All right, Leroy, what you got?
When you come into comics for the first time, you should be issued this book. They should just welcome to comics. Here's your copy. The chat's been busting my balls the whole time about it. It's number 2 on my list. This is a long Halloween. This is the book. If you're going to get into comics, this is the book that's going to do it. What you have is old school detective Batman trying to solve a serial killer that's only killing people on holidays. You're going through the pantheon of Batman villains along the way. You're introduced into some crime families that are now being introduced into TV shows just now and movies like the Falcone family and the Marconi family. That's all originally done in the Long Halloween. It's written by a guy named Jeff Loeb, who also wrote a book just outside my list called Hush. Jeff Loeb is probably the Batman writer, in my opinion. But this book will absolutely give you the introduction to Batman you need. So number 2.
To me,
Tim Sale on art, by the way.
Yes.
Sorry.
There's 4 artists to me that are Batman. It's Norm Brayfield, Marshall Rogers, Frank Miller, and Tim Sale. Those are the 4 for me that are the 4 greatest. And they're very, very, very different, and I can spot each one of them instantly. Their styles are distinct, but still beautiful. And just look at that, Rob. Look at that.
Tim Sale did such a good job on this book drawing Batman that they're going to make an animated show, and they're going to screw it up anyways. But I don't want to see this in anything but Tim Sale. I don't want to see the movie based on that fact alone. So there you go.
All right, very cool. Let's go have a look through chat. Dojo Kun, number 2, Days of Future Past, Uncanny X-Men 141, 142. Number 2, 100 Bullets from Hockey. The Galactus Trilogy from Manifesto, 48 to 50. Birds of Prey by Chuck Dixon. Justice League World's Greatest Superheroes by Alex Ross. I think that's all.
Joe says he loves Norm. He doesn't understand what Norm means to you and I, George.
I know.
All right. Are we up to number 1 already?
We're up to number 1.
And we already know what it is, obviously.
I don't. What do you got, George?
All right. Number 1 for me. This is the book when I was a kid that made me realize that collecting comics was
heretic.
That comics were the thing for me for the rest of my life. When I was a kid, I could only afford 1 Spider-Man title a month. I bought this called Web of Spider-Man, and I bought that because I was able to get it from issue number 1. And I told you about this story before, Rob. In this book, Kraven hunts, shoots, seemingly kills, and buries Spider-Man, and then takes his identity. We've talked about this in the past. You remember, correct?
Yeah, we talked about this. I remember with Rob. Yeah.
So these are the covers from the series. I just want to spotlight 1 issue, which is the 2nd issue of the series, this one. So in the first issue, Spider-Man was hunted, seemingly killed, and buried. This is issue number 2. Spider-Man does not appear once in this entire story. Remember, he was shot previously. To a reader reading this for the first time, at the time, he might really, truly be dead. You start questioning it. This is one of the characters. His name is Vermin. Look at the narration here coming from Vermin. Beyond just the lettering, you can see him slurring his words. Hold on a second. But look at the color of the box. You see how it's green? You get to the next character, Kraven. Distinctive because his is then orange. You get to Mary Jane. Hers is now like a magenta color. Little things like that were done in the story to differentiate the words from the reader, because there are moments on pages and in panels where both the characters are thinking at the same time. I forgot to mention, this is for Darren Wagner, Michael Bancroft, Eric Weathers, and Joe Fulton. For Darren, to me, this is a masterclass of storytelling. Everything in this merges together. Writing, art, colors, letters, editing. For Michael, I know he's a huge Spider-Man fan. He started reading in the 90s. This is from 1987. For Eric, I just wanted to show him how it was done with the lettering and the colors. And for Joe, I mentioned this to Joe for a reason. It's almost kind of funny. Patrick Parnell was showing his book, and it was a character shooting some bullets, and it was saying bam, 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 bam. And he's like, oh, that's my tribute to Travis Charest. And Joe said, oh, well, I think Brian Boland did it first in Killing Joke in 1988. Well, I remember seeing this first in 1987 with Rick Parker. The same sort of style of those words just jumbling on into the page. And it's little things like this that I remember that I love about comics. And the one reason I wanted to mention the editor on this book is that this was originally supposed to be a 6-issue story arc in Web of Spider-Man. And the editor said, that doesn't make any sense. How could he be buried in one issue and in some other comic title be fighting Dr. Octopus in the middle of like Manhattan? We're going to cross this over through all 3 titles. And that was done based on the editor's recommendation. At the time, it was very unheard of. You didn't see crossovers. Now they're all over the place. But this, to me, is my number one recommendation to a new reader to get someone on board. Spider-Man is instantly recognizable. This book is extraordinarily violent, and the art is absolutely exquisite.
Now, George, how many books did you leave off my list because you know my taste so well, and you're like, well, Leroy's going to have that. Leroy's going to have 10. Okay. All right, now I feel better. I would like to tell Joe that Norm is my favorite artist ever. Period. End of story. End of discussion. So there you go.
Jay says Norm was the first person to ever review my portfolio when I was younger. That's
I would suggest that Joe go back on my channel and look at George's portfolio, his art collection, because George has a lot of cool Norm stuff in there.
Amanda says, "What is the title to search for this?"
I'm sorry, I'm doing terrible with that.
And is it like, do you have to pick up the single issues? Is it available in like a trade?
It's been constantly in print. They just printed it again in something called an Epic Collection. It's available right now at a discount on Amazon. Once again, I tried to pick stuff as best I could. That if you couldn't get the original, you can get a reprint of it somewhere. So yeah, this is called Craven's Last Hunt.
Do you want to read this one, George?
Great call, George, and you're right. 87 is earlier than 88.
Joe says, I have the Marvel Select hardcover of Craven's Last Hunt on my shelf. One of the greatest story arcs in comic history. Very cool.
You would like it, Rob.
Yeah, I might. Yeah, for sure. All right, Leroy, what do we got?
Well, obviously, it's the most important comic book, at least in the last 50 years, if not ever. It's Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. There's a reason why. So before Dark Knight Returns, Batman, just think of Batman as always being Adam West from the TV show. That's what Batman was, with the boy Robin and, back to the Batcave and all that. Then comes Frank Miller, changes the game. They're still copying what he's doing every year today, where they try to redo characters and make them more dark and villainous and edgy and whatever. But it really worked for Frank here. The great thing about the Dark Knight Returns, I was trying to give it some thought, George, and express why it's still so great today. A lot of the political undertones in this book are still relevant right now, as far as the political correctness. Always trying to rehabilitate people that are beyond saving. That's addressed in this book. So there's a lot of current themes that are going on now that are addressed back then. It's the best version of Robin. Usually I tend to like books that don't heavily rely on Robin. I found that Frank has the best version of Robin, and I enjoyed the arguments with Superman in this book. So there's a whole heap of reasons why this is the best book of all time, in my opinion. And not only is the best book of all time, but if you're getting into comics, you got to read this book.
Rob, remember I told you in Miracle Man, Alan Moore talks about all of the old tropes and kind of explains them away. Frank Miller does that in this book. You know how Batman has that chest emblem with the yellow around it, and which is very clearly a target? Like, that's the first thing people are going to look at. He talks about that in the book. Like, he explains how he has that like there on purpose, because he has it even more reinforced. He wants people to shoot him there, because that's where most of his body armor is. It's little touches like that that really are just incredible.
Donald says Holy Terror is a billion% better than Dark Knight Returns. I don't know what he's saying. I don't know if that's
a cute take.
Very cool. All right, let's have a look what chat says. Spider-Man Blue from Mr. Von Stugel.
That's Tim Sale as well.
Leroy said my number one earlier, so I'm changing up my number one. Okay, let us know what it is. Jose saying number 3, The New Frontier from Darwin Cook. What else we got? Johnny Cage, Lucifer 1 to 75. Hockey says Mouse Guard number 1.
We have Improbi with Daredevil 181.
Where is that? Oh, yep.
That's the fight I was telling you about earlier, where Bullseye fights Elektra.
Jennifer Garner. Sorry, George.
I feel like
Eric McIntyre, number 1. Kanto. If Only I Had a Heart, trade paperback. It's by IDW. Great story, great art. It's about a medieval robot leading his people to a new home. Okay, very cool. It's a very it's a unique selection.
I do feel like you need to do this show again with some Marvel people, though, Rob. Like, I feel bad. I just don't know about. I mean, I read X-Men and it turned me off. I was never really into Spider-Man, so I feel like we're not addressing everything here, because George is like me. He's a DC guy mostly. Obviously he had Spider-Man, but I understand that people love X-Men, and maybe you need to have somebody on one time to talk about X-Men. So, or not X-Men, but Marvel stuff.
Mm-hmm. But would they put as much love and effort as you two have put in over the last 3 days to?
Absolutely. There's people that love Marvel every bit as much as I love DC. There's lots of fans in the chat that are like that. So
Thunderbun says Dark Knight Returns is the only absolute version I own. Got it discounted on the last day of the San Diego Comic-Con in 2008. Donald DeLay says number 1 is Trencher by Keith Giffen. It just balls out, hilarious, and I love it. Number 2 is Holy Terror. Jose Garcia says number 2 is Invincible. It's interesting.
There's some books on that didn't make my list, and let me shout them out real quick. There's Red Sun, Superman Red Sun, Elektra Lives Again, Year One, Hush. All these books are great books that you can read too. We're limited to 10. It's a tall task, but there's a lot of books that maybe the chat mentioned or maybe not, but they're just outside the list. So,
George, I'm seeing a lot of Invincible recently. Do you think it is because it's a good series? I know you haven't read it, or do you think it's because the TV show has popped up again?
I think the TV show is made because the comic was so popular. I don't know anything about the comic. It's the same guy that did Walking Dead, or no?
Yeah. It's in my opinion, it's much better than Walking Dead. Walking Dead was cool when it first came out, but then it's just the same thing over and over again. It's just Dojo Coon and Thunder Buns will do a Marvel stream with me, so there you go. It's already sorted.
Yeah. You don't have to limit it. You don't have to limit it to Marvel. I would just say, I didn't limit like I said, my recommendations were no more than 2 Marvel, no more than 2 DC, and then stuff from every decade. So, Leroy did all DC, but I mixed it up. But yeah, I would say get those guys to bring their 10 best recommendations no matter what.
And I could have went and looked up. I just didn't want to be fake, man. I'm not going to sit here and talk about stuff that I don't like just to be pretentious. So there you go.
Let's have a look. Jose Garcia says Black Sad trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Do you know that one, George?
Anthropomorphic Cat.
Oh, okay. Joe Rose says his number 2 is Tom Strong and Alan Moore's Supreme.
Mm-hmm. Read that one as well.
Let's have a look. Virgil is very far behind on the numbers. Virgil
is probably catching up. He's behind. Yeah,
that's the issue where Batman punches Guy Gardner in the face.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Scroll up for Dojo Coon's number 1. Oh, where is it, Dojo? You always put them so far up that I have to find them. Here we go. Marvel 2-in-1, 53 to 58, Project Pegasus. K-Manifesto, Crisis on Infinite Earths, 1 to 12.
I do like I said, it's just heavy reading if you don't know comics, that's all. But I have it on my list.
All right. So in saying all that, the top 10, which was great, that was heaps of fun. What books am I buying to read?
Yeah,
I told you need to get Miracle Man 1 through
Miracle Man.
16. There's 4 editions. You only want the Alan Moore stories. Don't get the stuff by Neil Gaiman afterwards. It's available right now on Amazon in collected editions. That's what you need to read.
I disagree. I think you and Bancroft need to get together and take 5 and read them and do a video review where you guys talk about it. I don't mean a live stream. I mean just do a video, and you guys could go on this discovery of actual comic books together. It'd be great fun to watch. I think, George.
It would be fun. I just worry that it's so expensive. Like your selections. Like I picked like legit individual issues or stuff that you could get. You pick like omnibuses that are like $150.
Yeah, I don't suggest that they go both by like the green. I mean, I do actually. I do suggest that. Like, if you really want into comics, you really want to get into what it's all about, then yeah, my list. I feel comfortable with saying the list I gave you is a list that the definitive, not a definitive, but a really good look at DC in general, like across the time frames, what it's all about, where the best runs come from, what the characters are all about. Like, get them all. But no, I get with Bancroft. I mean, you guys definitely need to do Dark Knight Returns. You need to do Long Halloween. You probably need to do Kingdom Come. So there's 4, and I'll give you one more.
I think you should go back, listen to what we said, and pick based on what you think you're interested in. Like if I picked something, like I picked The Hobbit. If you didn't like that, don't read it.
Yeah, but George, that's not you did it a little different. You didn't give like a recommendation list. You kind of cherry picked, looked at people. Like I'd be interested to hear your list, like I just did.
I kind of did do that. Like these are my book. Like I wouldn't say these are my 10 favorite comics ever, but these are the 10 books I would recommend to a new reader, like Rob. I really think they run the gamut of styles and genres. Yes, Trespasser Giant or Hobbit Trade aren't one of 10 favorite comics of all time. But if I was to try and convince someone read comics, it would be one of the 10 books I would recommend.
What I'm saying is, you said, okay, this is for this person.
Yeah,
I'm saying don't do that. Just say somebody getting into comics, regardless of who they are. Here's your top 10.
Okay.
And George, you know how you recommended someone go and pick up the damaged copies or the misprint copies, and
to someone
actually did that. So thanks.
Oh,
nice.
Cool.
Nice.
I think it's a great way. No offense, to save a few bucks. And like I said, you can read issue 2 and really get an idea of the story.
What I want to do as well is I'm going to choose one book from each of you. Right, but I also want to get one book from people in the chat. Not everyone. So everyone, chuck out your number 1 recommendations, and Leroy and George and I will discuss it now. And we'll come to a conclusion. Well,
hopefully they're books I know nothing about.
Look what Mo Bix just said.
You can't go wrong with Trespasser.
No, that's
cheers, Mo.
And he was the one I recommended it for.
Now Rob's gonna cry. Jesus, I hate when Rob cries on stream.
That's pretty cool. I hope if you're in the chat and you got your name called out by me, I hope you really do consider giving it. Like I didn't just throw these names on there. I really did think long and hard about this.
All right, Eric McIntyre has been saying this one a few times. Stan Lee's reimagines the DC universe. George, Leroy, you know me. What do you think? No, too much.
It basically, Stan Lee took each of the characters, like Batman or Superman, and said, "Well, if I was going to create Batman, this is how I would have created him." So it's not like it's Bruce Wayne whose parents were killed. Like he creates a whole new origin. It wasn't something I liked.
Okay, all right. You might have to try and sell us in the chat, Eric, because that has not gone down well with the oldest man ever to exist. Thunderbuns, Craven's Last Hunt. So he's recommending what George has already recommended. Kind of cheating, I think, a little bit there, Joe. What do you think, George?
No, I don't think it's cheating at all. I think he's agreeing with what I'm saying. I think you would love that story, Rob.
So would I love it more than Miracle Man? That's the thing.
It's different. One's a completely mainstream book. I think you would like the art in it and the violence in it. I don't know if you like it more, but why don't you pick Miracle Man from me and Craven from Joe?
Maybe.
You said he's taking one from the chat. You're taking one book total from the chat.
One
Not
book
everybody in
total
the
from
chat.
Yeah,
Right.
one book total from the chat. George, I don't want to go bankrupt by getting all the books
You
from
said
chat.
you were going to read all 10. I gave you one at a discount.
Hey, let's see what happens. This book by Shane Shivers. I know it's manga, but it's worth reading this horror anthology. I do love horror. I do love manga. Rising Stars. Is that a book? Or is he just saying words? We don't know. Pit number 1.
I don't. I'd go with a Hulk series first, I guess. Maybe.
Really?
I mean, the Pit's great for the art, and the story is really good. But is that let's be realistic. With what's going on, you're going to read Pit regardless. With what's going on Comicsgate right now, so we don't really need to recommend it. You're going to read it.
You say that, but
yeah, true. You haven't. Yeah, you've not read very many comics.
That's it. K Manifest says, I'm checking out all the recommendations, especially creepy number 63. J.R. Jarrow says Tom Strong or New Frontier.
So are you familiar with The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen by Alan Moore?
Yes, kind of.
Okay, so Alan Moore did a series of different titles, and one of them was Tom Strong, and one of them was League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Ooh, okay. Random Task says Frank Miller's Daredevil Run.
I would really appreciate it that you went and changed this title after we did the stream.
To what?
Not the best comics of all time, because that's not what this is.
Top 10 recommendations. That's what it was. That's what you told us to do.
Well, you know me. Billy Basker says, Rob says you've read the descriptor Ghost in the Shell on your campaign. Read the whole story. You should, or change your description. Jeez, Billy, calm down, mate. The Judas Contract trade paperback? No.
I gotta tell you, Dojo, the scene where Beast Boy gets poisoned by licking the poisoned envelopes was really corny. I wouldn't recommend that one.
Mobig says, I do love manga. Is it too late to refund? It's never too late. It's never too late.
Hell, Mobigs.
Proby says, Amazing Spider-Man 234, 236, 238, 251. Wow. Okay.
That's the Hobgoblin story. That's a great storyline. And Bancroft loves that too. I like Hobgoblin better than Green Goblin. I actually love that storyline.
If I did top 10 books, Rob, like Sin City would be there. Like I would write books like that. That's the difference on this list. What about Jason?
Unhinged. If you didn't listen to the whole stream, you were recommended on my list as number 2, the book to read. If you go back and take a listen to that.
Jason says, I recommend Absolute books 1 and 2. Very
Wait a minute, George. I remember Rob saying in the last stream he was going to read every book on our top 10 list.
You did say that, Rob.
Every book, he said.
Punisher, Ghost Rider, Wolverine, team up, any of them. What else we got? I would leave the title as is, and you can use a quote from George on your IGG and mention your book was listed by him on a stream about the best comics of all time. That is a sensational idea.
Rob, you said all 10.
Marvels by Alex Ross is a cool concept with beautiful art. I think I may have said that initially, Leroy, and then by the end of the stream may have changed my mind and said something else.
I have you saying it. You said it.
I think you should read Miracle Man 1 through 16 in the collected editions. Listen to the chat and pick Craven's Last Hunt, and then pick something from Leroy. That way you'll have a Marvel, a DC, and an independent title.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
You said you'd read all of them, Rob.
How with The Dark Knight Returns?
It's just one book. It's not that bad.
Okay.
You wouldn't be in for a whole thing. Matter of fact, if you pick 3, I would say do Dark Knight Returns, Long Halloween, and then for you, probably Kingdom Come.
Oh
Cool.
yes,
The
Eric, you were one
Replicator
of the people I
Rising-
recommended that for, and for Miracle Man. Awesome.
Rising Stars is 24-part comic series where a meteorite hits Earth, giving some children Yeah. Okay. Eric says I'm going to read Miracle Man 1 to 16. George is just so excited that people can read his recommendations. That's
Don't
amazing.
read past that though. Once Gaiman takes over, it goes down the tubes.
All right.
Does it wrap it up at the issue 16, George? I mean, I can't know, but
Yes.
okay.
That was heaps of fun, guys. We had the most people we've ever had watching one of our streams. We had like 35 people watching, so that was really cool. Obviously, people like this kind of thing. We'll do it again. We'll do a Marvel one with Dojo and who was it? Dojo and Joe.
K Manifesto. Oh,
Joe Fulton. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Anything else you guys
You
want
might
to talk about?
you might pull a couple in just because we're Comicsgate and we're all 42. You might get the Odd and Stuff guys in here and do an Image one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be really cool, actually. Yeah, I'd like that. Rob is just an idiot. Hey, what can you say? I try. I've already read the Superman Mongol story.
Oh wow. Darren Wagner says, "Great idea. I don't know who thought of it. I think it was Eric McIntyre. Unless it was Darren and I'm misunderstood. I apologize. I thought it was Eric.
This is why I know this isn't George's real list, because there's the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. He did not even talk about it.
That's my favorite run of all time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't mention it because, like I said, I don't know who would like that. I wanted to pick stuff that everyone would like. But I still like this stuff.
This is tempting. If you want a recommendation different from George or Leroy, check out Savage Sword of Conan. That is very tempting. I do like Conan.
I think you would like Conan. I think you would like that run.
Barry Windsor Smith, who I mentioned earlier, did a series in that was just beautiful.
Savage Sword is a classic. Cool. Any final comments, guys?
Thank you, everyone, for showing up. I had so much fun doing this. I hope whoever I shouted this out to considers picking it up. I'm just so happy.
So I'll try and order the books today, and I'll try and read them by next week. We'll see if they arrive.
All right. We'll talk about that.
We'll see if they arrive. They might not arrive in time. But you also want Bancroft to read them, don't you?
We'll talk about that afterwards.
All right. Very cool. Yeah, make sure you check out Bancroft. Does he have a show today, or he doesn't have a show today?
I think he might be having Shelby on for closeout. I'm not sure 100%. So I'm not 100% sure.
Go check out Bancroft's stream and be on later today. George is working on articles for the Splintering. Link is in the description. Leroy's show link is in the description. Go back a comic book. Doesn't have to be Replicator, but if it is awesome, link is in the description. And thank you, chat, man. It was so cool having so many people in here dropping their thoughts on the best.
Yeah, the chat was great today. The chat was great.
Sensational. Fantastic. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. We will see you next week, and hopefully we'll talk about the books, or we'll do something. We'll figure it out. All right. Bye, guys.
You did it again.
Oh, this is the second week in a row. What in the hell? Where's Mo at? Mo